For July 15, 2019, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Lee.
Councilman Scaringi.
Present.
Councilman Livingston.
Present.
Councilwoman Cronus.
Present.
Councilman Taylor.
Present.
Councilman Papstrat.
Present.
Councilman Mosto.
Present.
President Scanlon.
Present.
That's all 7 here.
Start with Jerry Nystrom from Jacobs Engineering to discuss social media postings.
Got a handout that we can pass around for people to look at. Okay.
The extra one, I guess.
An extra.
If you're ready, I'll go ahead and begin. I want a chance to regroup for a moment. First, I'd like to thank the members of the council for having me here to address some of the issues that are going on in social media, and I would also like to thank the members of the council that were able to attend the scheduled walkthrough of the facility last week. I think there was an opportunity for people to see a lot of the work that's happening on site. Hopefully, y'all were pleasantly surprised by the status of things and how it's taking shape for meeting our consent order milestone requirements. So basically, I'm here to address the social media postings of Councilman Livingston. And I think there's some misrepresentations in those. And they're getting a lot of comment, I think, from people around the area. So on page 1, you'll see one of the comments that was posted. We take exception to those comments. We were not the people involved in 2011. I really don't wish to address what happened in 2011, but I assure you that the procedures that are being done are well within the industry standards for engineering of this type of construction. I don't for a minute doubt the sincerity of the plant staff who are posting these originally, that they are interested in the quality of the facility. I believe them. I believe it's a sincere effort on their part. So if we go to page 2, the latest posting, there's a picture you'll see that has some control panels on the wall. The one to the right of it is what was referred to as a leak and faulty construction. The one beneath that is another picture of the wall that they are addressing as leaking. The picture in the lower left is a light fixture that has been installed by the contractor for contract 6, and I think the May 2011 picture stands for itself. So picture 1, the leaking picture with the electrical panels.
God bless you. Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
The allegation that's made is that the wall is leaking, and it's an example of shoddy construction. When we got the postings, we went out and looked at the specific areas. We eventually found what we believe are all of the areas that were addressed by the plant staff. Those panels, I think it's important to note that the first picture and the third picture are on a wall that's about 10 feet long. So they're really not two different areas, they're one area, and there's a couple of issues with that. One is indicating that the panels, the walls leaking is shoddy construction. Picture to us appears to be several weeks old, if not months old, because the panel construction is now complete and was at the end of June, on June 26th. You don't see the rest of construction that took place in that area by this time. I do have a picture on page 4 that does show it. Actually, it's on page 6. That's actually the completed area that we saw last Thursday, July 11th. There's additional conduits that were run in that area that are not showing up in the picture that was posted last week. The leaks that were supposed were leaking, there was no sign of leaks at all. These are on a common wall to the north grit channel, and the grit channel was leak tested back in January, and leaks were sealed in January of 19. So how there is a suggestion that there's leaks is another question, but those that wall has not been leaking since well before the picture was taken. The actual conditions were described under item number 1. The next statement is the control panels were covered in residue. That is true. They were cleaned up on the day of the event. Those panels were inspected before the building was put into service on June 26th, and there was no damage internal to them. It was cosmetic damage or cosmetic issues on the exterior of them that has been cleaned up. There's a diagram on page 5. The drawings show you the general location of the 2 photographs that were taken to represent that one particular area. As indicated on page 6, that is the area as we saw it July 11th. Item 2, that indicates that there was a wall leak. Again, concrete tanks are tested for a particular reason, to make sure that if they are leaking, they are fixed prior to putting them into service. That wall was tested, and any visible leaks were repaired at the time back in January when it passed the leak test. If there were any subsequent leaks that developed, because sometimes water migrates through a wall at a slower pace, they also were fixed. As of July 11th, there were no leaks in that wall. That is standard repair of the industry. Anybody who's familiar with it would understand that. Item number 3 is a form tie hole. There was a video. I don't have look back at the first set of photos. That video, the image of it is the upper right corner. There is, in that video, there is water and soil streaming down the wall. We asked the plant representative who posted it where the location was. We believe we have found the exact location, and when we went and looked on July 11th, the hole had already been plugged, and it was not a leak at that time. It looks like to us that it had been plugged quite some time earlier. And it's not an example of a construction problem. It is a form tie that is used, it's a hole that goes through the wall to allow the structural integrity of the formwork to be held in place during placement of the concrete. Once the concrete is set, you can remove the formwork, you pull the bolt out, and you seal the holes. Standard construction practice has been going on for generations in the industry. Giving you a write-up on that particular item in the package. The 4th item was a light fixture. allegation on the website posting was that it was an example of shoddy construction. It is actually a light fixture that was put in under an incomplete section of the construction. We've already talked about that particular section. It was the expansion joint that we've talked about previously. That joint will be fixed when the construction is sufficiently complete above it so that we can complete the repairs to it, to complete the construction joint. The fixture has not been energized. It will be inspected to make sure that there was no leakage into it. If there was any leakage into it, the contractor will replace the fixture at no cost to the owner because he was doing out of sequence work. The fifth item we just recently showed was about a door at the lab. There was an accusation that the door had a panic bar on the outside of the door instead of inside the room. There were suggestions during the meetings, that are regular weekly held meetings with the contractor, that plant staff wanted the panic bar on the inside of the door as opposed to the outside of the door. Putting it on the inside of the door would not have been functional because you have to pull the door open, so pushing on a panic bar is not allowing you to pull the door open. It is not a panic bar, it's an access that you can easily access from the corridor. I think we've all seen this particular door. The main issue is that as it was designed to open inward to the building, to the laboratory area, is the only legal way to do it in accordance with fire code. You cannot open a door into an egress path such as that corridor would be. It would be against fire code. We certainly don't recommend violating the fire code. Plant management discussed this at length with us. They walked the site with the engineer and said that it was an acceptable installation to them as early as May of this year. And you can see an excerpt of an email that I received from the engineer confirming his discussions with the plant manager a few months ago. Just to confirm for you that they did discuss this with the existing plant manager. Takes a fair amount of time to go chase these issues down. I would indicate these are more of a case of misrepresentation of the actual conditions. If plant staff wants to have a dialogue about issues that concern them as far as quality is concerned, we have been forthright with their management. We will talk to any of them about any of the issues that they have. We certainly appreciate a second set of eyes in addition to ours. We have no problem with that, but it should be factual instead of inaccurate. And what was posted was factually inaccurate. The other thing I will say is it takes time and effort away from us doing the rest of the construction effort to go on a mission to find areas without a description of what the issues are or where they are. This was discussed at length during the tour on Thursday with both council persons as well as plant staff that attended the walkthrough. Any other questions or comments?
Councilman Pepstrad?
Jerry, good evening, thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
When you said that you had that, because when we went on the tour with you about a month ago or so, there was a plant staff then also, and were any of these problems discussed during your Thursday tour? Was the plant staff aware of
Yes,
it?
plant staff, of the person actually that posted these went along on the tour.
All right.
And they were discussing that.
All right, and was he satisfied with the answers that he received from you?
You'll have to ask him. To me, when you misrepresent what the conditions are with your photographs, you're probably not going to be satisfied. The conditions as they were that day are what I'm representing.
So, these posts were before that day?
And
they
we
never
have
came back.
photos that would indicate the condition of of those photos, it's hard for us to imagine that those were current photos.
So when you take your staff and yourself away to check this stuff out, even when you come down here at night, because you were here a couple weeks ago for the same reason that you're here tonight, even though you told Councilman Livingston that he could call you at any time, gave your phone number out and your email to discuss any problems that may arise. And did you receive a phone call or an email?
Neither phone call or email. That was discussed on the tour, and Councilman Livingston said he felt that there would be a concern of, quote, conflict of interest because the company that I work for happens to be pursuing the O&M services contract. But as I've said to everybody else, I have a construction management contract. That's what I'm working on. Any issues associated with construction, I'm more than willing to discuss with any party that wants to know the answer.
And if there was a conflict of interest, we have a corporation counsel here that would indicate that right off the bat.
Correct.
So by not hearing any objections, I would think that there's no conflict of interest to ask you questions that
Pertain to
that
construction.
pertain to construction, which that's what these are. So how much does it cost the city? I mean, I just figure when you say that you're taking staff out to chase down misrepresented problems, and I understand if they were legitimate problems, I'm all for it, but if they're misrepresented for any particular reason,
Absolutely.
it's costing the city money and time, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. I would have to work up an estimate of what the costs were, but it took several hours for several people in my staff to go around on this wild goose chase, as I'll refer to it.
And we're not talking $15 an hour spent.
We're not talking $15 an hour set.
You satisfied with that, Mr. Livingston?
What do you mean satisfied?
That you're costing the taxpayers money for your misrepresentations of whatever it is you're posting. I mean, this is the second time he's been down here. He's already asked you to call him or email him to give you any information that you find questionable or you're not happy with, and you didn't do either one. But here he is out chasing stuff down, costing taxpayers money and time that should be going towards the finishing of the plant.
I sent an email out almost 2 weeks ago addressing my concerns about conflict of interest with Jacobs as a bidder and Jacobs working on our construction site and Veolia as a bidder and Veolia involved in our construction process.
Here's corporation counsel. Why don't you ask him right now?
But you can also notify Mr. Lake.
What's that? I reached out to Mr. Lake and I have yet to hear back from
You
him.
told him these specific problems.
Not
and
not
asked
on
if they
these
were-
specific problems. I was trying to track down information on another problem from Ron and I haven't heard back.
Just to be clear, if you have a construction question, anybody can ask, Jacobs Engineering on construction issues.
If you have anything that even approaches the other stuff, I will respectfully decline. I do not wish to get involved in any of the other parts other than construction-related issues.
Well, but on our tour, you were talking about your hypothesis that GHD was involved with one of the bidders on the contract. And that seemed to be in direct contradiction to what you had told us earlier, that you're not concerned
I
about.
was asked questions about it.
Right, but what you
I
just.
responded to the direct questions about people had concerns about the labeling on clothing and whether it created an issue or not.
But I don't recall anybody bringing up GHD and that they might be involved with one of the bidders on the contract.
Okay?
That was something that you seemed to bring up unprompted.
Okay. The other issue is that the other bidder that you're in question of, they're on site as well. Does that same concern about the clothing bother people?
My email was expressing concern about any of the contractors or subcontractors, any of the project managers who are involved in our construction project and their involvement with this bidding process. I wasn't singling out Jacobs in my email. I was addressing a broad concern that is related to the fact that we are undergoing this bidding process at the same time that our construction process is still underway. And I haven't, you know, what it says in the RFP is that it's up to the owners to decide whether or not there's a violation of that particular provision. And what I was asking for in my email was for the owners of the facility, the representatives of the owners, the city council, the mayors, the village board, to make a decision on that. And if the decision is that whatever Corporation Council says is what we say, then let's say that. Put it out in public. Put it in writing. If that's our position, then let's make that our position.
All right. How about the misrepresenting that? I mean, what, this is on the construction end of it, this is why we're down here, having another conversation 2 weeks later over the postings that, we were told about last time, about putting stuff in without getting information from anyone other than just posting something you see, reposting it. And how does that work? Just repost something?
I also sent an email out 2 weeks ago asking to see if we could get plant staff to come in and
Right.
address some of these concerns, because what we're talking about here is plant staff are generating this content. They are flagging what they perceive to be issues, and if we want to figure out what the issue is there, whether, you know, what Jerry says is absolutely the case, or if there's another side to it.
There is two sides, evidently, because you're posting one side, and the engineer is here to correct what you're posting, according to his show. So we're getting both sides. Different times, we should get both sides at the same time.
So maybe we should have some plant staff come in and sit with Jerry so that we can have this conversation instead of broken up by 2 weeks.
Here's what I've
in between,
decided.
or-
This is what I decided after going back and forth.
Sure.
We're gonna do exactly what you're saying. We're gonna, next month, the work session, we're gonna have Jerry come back and one representative from the plant come back. And then we can discuss things then, go to see, just have a conversation and see what's out there and see what needs to be corrected as far as misinformation or just clearing the air, I guess. So that's what we plan on doing.
Will that satisfy you so that you can trust what Jerry might say at that time after that discussion? Is that gonna satisfy you?
I mean,
Satisfied?
I don't know what that conversation looks like.
I don't either. But
I'm looking forward to
are
it.
you having an open mind over it? Let me put it that way.
Yes.
So if it comes down to, that the plant staff may be misrepresenting, but would you say that?
I'm not sure. I don't know what you're asking.
I'm just saying, it seems to be like you're one side, we're supposed to be open-minded about this process, all of us.
Yes.
Councilman Livingston, what he's saying is you seem to be one-sided. You're siding with the employees or the plant staff, whatever you want to call them, on what they're saying to you. But you're also not listening to what our engineer is saying. And you're believing in them, what they're saying to you, which we here don't know if they're telling the truth, because they're not here to talk to us about it. So I don't know.
I mean, they are here.
Yeah.
They're here at
But
every
we went,
meeting.
I was at
But
the-
they're not telling us that there's leaks and stuff like that. They're saying there were some things that were at fault, and Jerry did go and fix them.
No, I mean, what I'm saying is they're actually physically in the room right now.
And-
They've been coming to our meetings
Yes.
for
Yes,
weeks
and
now.
I do know
And they're-
that. But we hear things upstairs when they talk to us on Wednesdays, and we appreciate them coming in and talking to us. But they're talking about the privatization. They're not talking about any faults with the plant with us.
On a construction.
Right, on a
What we're
construction
talking
level.
about here is,
We're talking.
the pictures when we say misrepresentation, the pictures were taken, according to Jerry, at a different time than they were already in the process, or they were already corrected, and the pictures that were posted after the corrections were made were the pictures that weren't corrected. So they were dated pictures.
In my feeling, really, there shouldn't be any pictures taken until the plan's done. When the plan's done and they say it's good and there's an issue, that's the time to fix the issues. But in the meantime, he's gotta finish his construction part first. And that's what they've gotta do. And that's the way I look at it. And then you go back and say, it's just like when we build something, like signs. I go through after the sign's built to make sure everything's right. If there's an issue, we have to fix it right then. And that's what you do, but you don't go through and fix the issues before it's built. You fix them after it's done.
Mr. President, I think that your plan was good. I think that you know, we should hear from all parties in one dynamic conversation. I think that, you know, we absolutely should be empowering Jacobs to expedite this process in terms of finishing our construction. That's obviously our priority. I think that, you know, we should be listening to our plant staff, because, you know, they tried sounding the alarms years ago multiple times, and I think that, you know, some city officials at the time made a mistake in not listening, and they just don't want that history to repeat itself, so they're rightfully worried. And then we as a council, I think, we've seen together, you know, construction blunders happen during this process, delays and serious issues come about, so we should also be skeptical. I think that the dynamic conversation with all parties, as the president said and stated, I think will be a good next step.
Councilman Scrigny.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it'll be good to have all parties kind of get in here and kind of set the record straight, if you will. I did go on the tour last week, you know, so I think on a very substantive level, I think one of the big concerns here is that we need to separate, at least as it relates to this conversation, construction versus public-private partnership, right? So, for example, going on the assumption that this picture here in the upper left-hand corner is the one that was in the social media posting. I don't know, I didn't see it, but I'll assume that it is. I was at the tour last week. I know this is what I saw. I was there in the room with both you guys, right? So the problem is that this picture here on the right in the original posting is not only the entire wall, but you can even tell from a very unprofessional perspective, which would include me, that there are more conduits, there are more wires, there are more things on the wall, right? So the problem is that by definition, that is, in terms of where we are now, that's miscomplacent, because it's not showing the entire picture. Obviously, it was this at some point. When that was, I don't know if anybody knows. But the problem is that there's a domino effect here, right? Because not only does it dilute the conversation that we're attempting to have, but it also has the ability to potentially degrade the perceptions of the public as it relates to what's actually going on there, solely from a construction perspective, right? So I think if there are concerns that people raise, you know, if we remember the conversation that we had at a business meeting, utilize all your resources that are available to you. Ron Lake was also at the tour, right? So we know Ron's there, we know Jerry's there, we know the plant workers are there. So let's find out what the construction issue actually was. And I think as Jerry kind of hit the nail on the head on the tour at a number of points, right? If there was issue X, it was solved with thing Y, with regulation Z on date A, and get those facts and see what was the issue and how it came to a positive conclusion, if it did, right? And I think that more holistic view will add a more concise conversation, as allow us to, as well as the public, to have a real better understanding of what's going on.
Jerry, when you're done with this project, and it is a project, you're gonna have a checklist.
Absolutely.
Does somebody else go through the checklist along with you?
Oh, I've got a whole staff of people, the engineers.
So when you're
will
done,
go through it.
they're gonna go through this whole checklist to make sure
Project
everything's
manager,
right.
yes, the project manager for the city will go through it. There's a whole
That's what-
collaborative effort going through
I
this.
see it all the time during construction, I'm just saying.
So what happens when you're going through that checklist?
They look to see if it's complete, if there's a problem.
Yeah, so, and realize, we've got a staff of people who go, through this facility, hourly, daily, they're seeing all parts of this, and when they see something that happens, instead of waiting until the end, they tell the contractor this is not being constructed correctly, and we head it off when it happens. To think that we wait until the very end to fix everything would not be accurate
No.
either. But at the end of it, the owner, the plant staff, the engineer, our staff, and the contractor will walk all parts of these facilities. And any issues that are identified will be corrected before they can apply for final completion. It's a standard in the industry called a punch list.
That's
Where
right.
people can identify things that are not right, things that need to be different. If there are things that need to be different than what was designed, and the owner wishes to pay for those through the construction contract, that can happen. But being different does not necessarily make it wrong. It may be a preference by somebody. And we are sensitive to those issues, trying to make sure that people who run these facilities have all the options available to them when they operate and maintain these facilities.
Other
Can I
questions or
ask,
comments?
because I'm
Go ahead.
just trying to understand, is there an allegation that plant staff is advising Jacobs of, this is wrong? Here's the photograph, it was taken this day, it's in building A of this corner, and Jacobs isn't doing anything? Because that's what I'm missing, because my understanding is somebody, management or somebody from staff attends most of the construction meetings.
Correct.
So my question is, are they being told, and if Jacobs is being told and not correcting them, then absolutely, the owners need to know that.
That would make sense.
But if they're not being told at the meetings, or if they don't wanna do it at the meetings, not sending it to Ron Lake or to Jacobs separately, here's the picture, here's the date, here's what's happening, that I think is the frustration.
Absolutely.
It's going on Facebook.
Mr. Livingston, are you alleging that?
No, I never
Okay,
alleged
all right.
that.
I'm just
Okay, well
asking.
then-
Yeah, no, I've never publicly, privately alleged that. It's
Okay,
not
all right,
something-
thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'm sorry, one last question. Just so we're not undercutting anything, I'm gonna go back to this example, Jerry. So, the issue that was going on with the headworks leaking wall with the electrical panels, has that issue, if there was an issue, has that been taken care of?
Absolutely. Before the picture was posted on social media, the issue had already been resolved.
So they're posting old pictures,
That's my belief in it.
so they're falsely posting old pictures and saying that this is what it looks like.
If you put a timeline to things, it wouldn't
well,
necessarily
it's
be false to
it's
say
misleading.
that at this time, this was what we observed. But to indicate with a posting on Facebook or some other social media at a later date, without having verified whether the issue you're posting a picture of has been resolved or not. And that's what's happening.
And that's-
Issues are dynamic. They happen daily, weekly, monthly, and they get resolved as we go along. And some of the issues that people want to talk about have already been resolved. We're wasting a lot of people's time talking about things that were already fixed.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Nystrom, for coming down. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Let's see, Ron Lake here?
I guess I'm filling in for Ron.
Okay, all right. Step up. Chief?
Confined space agreement.
Yep. We've got a Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Chief. How are you?
Fine. We've had a confined space agreement with the contractors at the Joint Sewage Treatment Plant for a couple of years. And the current contract is gonna be expiring in August. We just wanna continue it on for possibly 2 years. So it's a 2-year contract. The contract has gone up $100 a year. It's basically a retainer, $4,800 for the first year, $49 for the second year. But if we have to go down there, we haven't been there yet. If we have to go there, it's $795 a year. So that's basically all we're looking at, a 2-year contract for the mayor to,
Questions or comments? That was simple. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Stanley, before you, can we,
Yes.
do RL 136 since Chief Eggleston is here?
Sure.
thank you very much.
That makes sense.
It's on page
Page
26.
25, yeah.
Page 26 is the floor plan.
Okay.
Basically, we came down here before and we moved some overtime for the fire department. We need to move more, we're gonna probably need to move more later on. But we'd like to move $52,170.29 out of a vacant assistant chief's position. That's vacant from 1/1 to 7/15, that's $48,462.88. And the FICA associated with that of $3,707.41 for the total of $52,170.29 into the overtime account. If you guys have any questions, Chief Eggleston can.
Chief, I know we've asked you before, how do we slow down the overtime?
Stop the fires. Stop.
Right now, the biggest thing is the 9 firefighters who are in class. They will be graduating this Friday. Unfortunately, the 9 are down to 7 now, but that's a different issue. Having 9 extra bodies would be the equivalent of $80,000 a month in overtime.
Okay.
So those are there. And we're just, we're short 9 firefighters. We're budgeted for 117, we have 108, so we're short 9. I have 3 that have been in the military, that have been in the Middle East since January. They're gonna come back at the end of August. I have 2 that are on the job injuries. One was injured like in the last 2 weeks, she should be out for like 4 months. One has been out for a year and 5 months. I have 1 firefighter who's been off for a year and 5 months dealing with cancer. I have 2 firefighters who are retiring. One just retired, one's retired at the end of the month. One was disciplined, removed from duty, so I'm short 3 firefighters there. And which always happens 5 days a week and 3 nights a week. The paramedic students, I have 4 paramedic students, which is a 12-month program at Broome, fall, spring, and summer. 4 of them are in it constantly to keep up our paramedic level. It's just a lot of bodies. When the recruits come out of class and the military firefighters come back, it'll definitely help. It will not end overtime. There's a whole list of, if you want me to, there's a whole list of, we have monthly paramedic training that we have overtime for, mechanic overtime, which is a minor thing.
Oh, is it okay, Todd?
Usually it's over.
It's workers' comp.
Yeah, we just saw a comp case happen.
So we do have, So we have paramedic training, which is a monthly class. I have no control over that. Mechanic, not a large thing. Fires, multiple alarm fires, we have to call people for overtime. Shift manning is the big thing right now, keeping the fire stations open. Shift overrun for fires, EMS calls at the end of each shift. If you have a call at the end of your shift, you get paid. The contract says they get an hour overtime. People are off for AL time and cumulative leave because we work over a 40-hour week. Personal leave time, vacations, union business, deaths and families. There's a lot of different reasons why people aren't at work. Fire investigations, and then special events. We pay overtime at the fireworks, at the bridge run, at Luma. We do get money back for that sometimes, but it just goes to the general fund.
Right.
So there is a lot of overtime. I wish there wasn't. I'm hoping these new firefighters are going to help. But even when they start next Friday, I've had 2 retire, 1 was terminated, and 2 of my recruits didn't make it through. I have, so as of Friday, when the new recruits start, I'll have 7 new firefighters, which will be fantastic. But I'll be short 5.
Yeah.
And if we wait an entire year to hire them again, we're gonna be having this conversation again in the future.
Is there other training classes you would hire them from? Or is just a Binghamton?
For other departments?
There is such thing as a lateral transfer, don't have a huge problem with that. We have had some issues, we've had some good firefighters, and we've had some not good firefighters that we've got from other departments.
Right.
That is another way to do it, you wouldn't have to go through the training. I look at anything all the time. We try and take from the civil service list, the city residents, we try and hire off the list. I don't have any personal problem hiring outside. You get the firefighter quicker, save that 14 weeks of training. I don't have an issue.
Other questions or comments?
Sorry to make that long, but.
No, that's fine. No, it's
Sort of
not a short
explains it.
answer. I get that. Yeah.
Chief, do we have any issue with, I mean, we have a lot of firefighters working overtime, obviously. How are they doing? I mean, is there a burnout issue? I mean, are they
Yes,
enjoying the fact that they have?
They're making a lot of money, they're working an awful lot. Yes, sometimes they have to call an awful lot of people to get a few people to staff. They're working a lot. Me as the chief, I would prefer they weren't putting in so many hours.
Sure.
In a 15-day period, there's very few people that are working more than 12-hour shifts of overtime, although there are some. But I would say there's a laundry list of people that are working it. There's a few people that are working multiple shifts, but there's a lot of people working 1 extra 12-hour shift.
How much have we transferred total, including this?
That's 250, but I don't know.
We've transferred 200 so far. We're going.
And what was the original budget for the overtime?
It was like 250.
So we're double.
Was it a little bit on your budget?
I'm gonna answer that no, since I put together the budget a lot here. There's a lot of hopeful things here, one of which is how soon can we get these people in here in the summer, okay? How many people are gonna be out sick, how many people are gonna retire,
Well, if memory serves me correctly, the 3 reservists weren't a part of the conversation last year during the budget. And,
Nope, didn't know about them.
And that's a big impact.
Didn't know about them
Yeah.
for a short time. And it all adds up.
Yeah, no.
It's just, I had 2 people that were injured off the job. They've since got healthy and come back. They were gone for months,
Yep.
clearly. You know, you break an arm, you break a leg, one had eye surgery.
Other questions or comments?
Geez, sorry.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. The next one is our.
I'll certainly save on
Chief,
overtime.
19-139.
39. Okay?
Page 35.
32, 35.
Oh,
This is a transfer
God bless you.
of funds out of the police department for, as we just talked about, labor, okay? These are unfilled positions. They go back to the beginning of the year until now and some to the end of the year, okay? And we're not gonna be able to fill. And also correcting where we might have budgeted for a grade 1 officer, someone that's been here for 6+ years, and we got a probationary person, so we have 4 probationary people that were budgeted up here, so there was a savings of that. Okay, this is cleaning up all that stuff, okay? And moving monies, all those police savings that we have, moving it to a contingency line, okay? When we're taking the money out of the contingency line, and it's the second group of numbers there, we're transferring $54,532.97 to a compensated absences. We're moving $206,746 to pay for the probationary, officers from the grade 1 down to, probationary officer. We're moving $123,420.94 to buy 4 new police vehicles. We're transferring $20,000 to cover part of the technology that goes into those vehicles. And then we're transferring $200,000 to purchase new med cars for the fire department. Those cars have not been updated in over 7 years, okay? They really should be updated on a 5-year basis.
How many med cards will they cover, 200,000?
5.
5?
It's gonna cover 4 med cars plus a med truck, we wanna call it, that also will take care of the hazmat vehicle,
Yep.
okay? And the other advantage to this is there's a lot of shortage of vehicles throughout City Hall and the code office, and these vehicles that get pushed out of the other hands will go into that lower level to assist the, code enforcement officers and other areas in the City Hall that are asking for cars.
Questions or comments on this?
I wouldn't say lower level, different level.
Yes, yes. I'm looking at lowers.
Gotcha.
Okay, we all set? All right, thanks, Chief, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
On to Charlie Pearsall with RL 19-129.
Good evening.
Hey, Charlie.
Hello, Charlie.
The board has sent me to ask you to increase our deferred revenue line, J 42,680 by $500,000, and also increase the transfer to owners line, which is J 8130 54,899 by the same amount. That goes back to a check we received from our insurance carrier in December of 2016 for the flood damage to the media, the wall collapse. That money was set aside on the balance sheet as a deferred revenue, and now we're bringing it forward to pay for the K-5, or a portion of the K-5 media improvement.
Questions or comments?
And a heads up for the future budget, I don't want to say anything against Mr. Nystrom, but you had him in here for 35 minutes, and nobody asked him, is he going to achieve the third modification of the consent order that's due in 6 weeks for that building that was leaking and was leaking the day after the tour? I can assure you, if that's not done by August 31st, you will have failed on the third modification of the consent order. Originally, that was going to be done in August of 2017. So when he does his Jedi mind trick and says it's all engineering, don't worry about it, it's already 2 years past due. Facebook is not gonna penalize anybody. The DEC is going to penalize us. They threatened as much as $37,000 a day if we don't get this consent order by the end of the year. That's real money, and he should have been asked that. I agree, it's a waste of his time to be on Facebook. I'm not a member, I don't post on social media. If he wants to address Facebook, he should do it on Facebook and bring information to you that's usable and important. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
I want to respond to that. If we
Go
do
ahead.
get fines, it's gonna come from the contractors,
Okay.
okay? It is in the contracts, the contractors are responsible if they miss the, dates.
Then
All right.
why are we paying $15,000 a month?
And the fines are supposed to be credited back to us at the end of the.
Yes.
At the end of the.
Charlie, you're not part of the contracts, you're not fighting this stuff day in and day out, manage the plant properly. You're managing the
Then put it as a
construction.
deferred revenue and don't charge us. There
No.
are ways around it. Our ratepayers are paying right now.
This isn't on the
Just
agenda
like you
right
had
now.
$10 million
That's true.
sitting in your accounts for how many years? Just like you brought the city fund balance from $400,000 to a minus $4 million in 3 years when you were the comptroller here?
Which one?
Okay, we're off topic here, we're off topic here.
That's what happens when you get off topic.
We're off topic, all right, let's move on. Is Juliet here?
I'll cover Julie.
All right, Jared.
I got the info if you wanted to see parts on that.
Okay.
So there's two RLs, RL 19-137, RL 19-138. Those are usage of emergency solutions grants. That's the HUD entitlement to address homelessness. We have some sunset funds from last year, and this is how we're planning on appropriating them. This is based off of a continuum of care, which is the Homeless Coalition of the Southern Tier's recommendation. CDAC was notified by email. They're sort of on a break right now. The response to them was, do what COC says. Pass it on the mayor's office. The mayor's office says, do what COC says. So this has pretty much gone down the line of approving that. Two usages of the funding will be, I don't have the exact number, so I apologize. We have about 18,000 total between the two. 8,000 for the Volunteers of America for their capital improvements. Those are going to be AC units for their men's shelter. I don't know if you know this, but last year during the summer it got a little bit warm. They actually had to evacuate portions of the shelter due to the heat. This will help combat that if that happens again this year. The other issue is additional money for the already existing contract Family Enrichment Network. They do what's called homelessness prevention. So that means if someone's about to be evicted from their home, they can call them, get some emergency assistance, and they're able to remain in their home, which saves a lot more money than someone going to homelessness and then going eventually back into a unit. The money will be specific, well, COC's recommendation is, and we can say this in the contract, the amendment, the monies are specifically supposed to be used for people re-enter or exiting an institution. According to HUD, they're not considered homeless. They're getting out of prison, they're getting out of rehab, they're getting out of a hospital. They're not considered homeless till they hit the street. So this is a way for us to get them where they're never even homeless. They're basically getting out of that shelter, getting out of, or not the shelter, sorry, getting out of rehab, getting out of prison, getting out of, one specific one is youth, transitional youth housing, getting out of that and going straight into a unit. So they want to earmark it specifically for those kinds of homelessness prevention activities.
Questions or comments?
Steve,
Yes.
How much of the capital program set aside? I don't think that's what the line was called. The capital set aside, I think the $55,000 line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Talking about the applications we sent out? Yeah.
How much of that was spent? Is that was for last year's budget, correct?
No, well, that may have been in last year, but I can't remember exactly which year it is, but 55,000, that's CDBG money.
So this wouldn't apply to that because got it.
Although
ESG money.
Although
Right.
technically, a homeless shelter could apply for that capital improvements if they so choose. If
For-
any
for
homeless
capital
agents-
improvement.
For capital improvements, correct.
And you know how much of that fund was spent last year?
Of the capital improvement, no,
Yeah.
that we didn't do it last year. This is sort of our first year.
Or this is the first year?
This is the first year of our trial run. We'll see how well this works out.
Gotcha.
Hopefully it works
Second.
out well.
And you know how many applications there have been?
None have been submitted to me. They go directly to Durban Purchasing. I did get, I would say, 3 agencies that have inquired about it. Unfortunately, I couldn't tell you exactly. I know Stick was one of the ones. So
Okay.
Southern Tier Independent Center, they're one who's looking at it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Steve.
If I could possibly, if this could
Sure.
get expedited, I would appreciate it. If it can't be, I understand it too.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Sorry.
Hey, get out, will you?
You were doing good to you that last.
Sure, Kevin.
Not so much for BOA, but Jens, if we could get that expedited, because I think there's like 3 kids about to transition, they're about to age out of transitional housing.
Oh, yes, let's
Okay.
get that done for them.
We can expedite
Sorry.
that.
Do it for the kids.
Absolutely, for the kids. You mentioned kids.
All about
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jared, you going next, or are we on the Chuck?
Jared is gone.
Jared's gone, it's Chuck.
Do 15, 17, I think that's, pages 15 through 17. Back in January or February, I can't remember exactly when, we did an RL, when we're having some issues getting people to come in and plow snow, to use some temporary labor. We didn't need to use any of that. Contract in place now with the Teamsters Union, and hopefully we can take care of it. So I want to move that 10,000 back into overtime to help those guys come November.
Good idea.
Questions or comments?
Yes. Oops, sorry.
Yes. Go ahead.
Um,
Councilman Scriggy.
Thank you. Chuck, so that's great to hear that we didn't have to spend that money and that new plan that was implemented in the contract, it sounds like it worked out really well. However, moving these funds back, that doesn't mean that that program that we instituted is erased or gotten rid of in any way. We still have that plan B, so to speak, if we need it.
If we need it.
Right, provided technically we need funding for it if ever used, but the plan is still there.
You just add funding to it.
Correct, yeah, exactly. I just wanted to make sure that that was still relevant. Thank you.
Hopefully, Gio, honestly, we don't need it. Hopefully
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I agree, I agree.
Signed and everybody's happy and.
Yeah, no, that's great, that's great.
things get plowed great.
Thank you, Chuck.
Questions or comments? All right, Chuck, on to the next one, please.
The next one is, the Johnson City, Binghamton, IMA agreement on operation of the sewage treatment plant. Back in 2016, the city was putting a lot of labor, still is, into managing this project. And, we didn't think it was fair for the city to absorb all that cost, so we wrote an IMA agreement where the cities was broader. Johnson City didn't pass it originally, okay? They wanted some specific details, okay? Who are we gonna charge time to instead of leaving it open-ended? So if you look on page 19, the top of our 19 is what we had, which was a very generic thing. We can basically, anybody that's working on it, charge it. They made it be broken down into positions and identify the type of benefits everybody gets. So basically, so that there's no problem in the future, this identifies exactly what we both agreed to, okay? And the reason I bring this up is I'm working on the final bill, and the city actually paid more to an individual in here than was originally listed by $200.
So we'll get that done.
We're not gonna get it back for 18, but we'll get it back for 19 and 20.
Gotcha.
I'm changing, Johnson City's gonna vote on it in their first one in August, and they agree to the changes.
Great.
But this doesn't actually change anything, this just puts things in
It
correct.
just allows us, let's just say.
It solidifies it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Questions or comments?
Chuck, do we typically modify the IMA individually as municipalities, or do we typically do it as a joint owners meeting?
Since I've been here, it's probably been more individual pieces, right?
No, both bodies.
Right, yes. We both have to agree to it, but we do like pieces of the IMA, not the whole IMA at one time.
Sure.
All right, on the next one, Chuck, please, 131.
Okay, this is to move money around. We currently have a temporary service person that does inspections for us. And, we've used them during the year to help us do a couple other projects. I don't know if everyone's aware, but we are short a couple people in engineering. And he's assisted us in doing the police renovations. He assisted us in doing some salt and shed, work up at DPW garage. Yeah, yes. We're looking at, fixing the transfer station up at the DPW. So he's involved in a lot of stuff, and normally, we wouldn't need this money, but this is like a one-time year to get all these things done. So we're moving money from empty positions up through the end of last Friday to cover the $31,000 that we anticipate using between the rest of the year.
Questions or comments? All right, Chuck, on to 133, please.
133 is adjusting the sewer fund. They currently have had a empty position called wastewater pump maintainer. That position's been empty all year. They have not been able to find a person with all the experience that's required for that position. They have a laborer position that recently retired, and we have a person that can come in and fill that position. So we want to use that wastewater money that hasn't been spent to basically pay for the retiree's payout, so we can bring that guy in as soon as possible into that position.
Questions or comments? $137, Chuck?
127.
127, I'm sorry.
Is, when we did the budget last year, you have to estimate right now, when I'm putting together the budget for 2020, I'm estimating how much money is gonna be spent on that, project. and what the interest rates are gonna be from there until next August, okay? And what ended up happening this year, I estimated $1,530,000,000 is what we have to make a payment, principal and interest on multiple bands. The state ended up bringing those bands long-term, last month. So instead of it being a band, it's gonna be a bond, okay? And they incorporated more money into it than what I had planned. So we're spending money into this year because we got interest rates, I think the net interest rate's like 1.5% for 30 years. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm taking 1.455 and 75,000 from the band principal and interest and moving that to bond principal and bond interest. I'm short $239,331. I wanna take that $239,000 out of the sewer fund to pay that bond payment that's due in August.
Yes.
Thank you. Chuck, what was the logic behind aggregating multiple bands into one bond?
The reason is mainly due to the interest rate right now, okay? Are we gonna get an interest rate that's lower than 1.5% going forward?
The interest rate on the bond is lower than the
Well,
interest
no, but
rate?
the interest rate on the band would have been less. Okay?
Correct, that's why I'm asking.
Yes, but the bond's gonna be lower today than it's gonna be, say, in 2 years from today. That was the state's thought process here. You're juggling money, at some point it had to go a long time before the end of 21. Okay, 2021.
And they have the ability to be able to do that with our,
It's all their money. It's basically, they're loaning all the band money to us.
okay,
Okay, we right now we have an 03, 03, 03, 04, 05, 06.
Right.
And those were all bands.
Correct.
Currently, all we have left open is the 06 band. Okay, the 03, I should say, there's like $3 million on the 03 that we're paying off with FEMA money.
right.
Okay. So, the first one that we did was less than, I think it was like 0.99%.
That's why I'm trying to understand the logic, because bands are more short-term and they generally tend to have a lower interest
Yes,
rate.
they 100% deal, but when you're looking at this project, we're not gonna,
Yeah.
we have to borrow this over a 30-year period.
I understand,
So
okay.
we're getting, you know,
But just to get it on the record, though, this is something that's coming from the state.
Yeah.
This is not a decision that we are making
Correct.
exclusively. Okay.
Other questions or
Thank you.
comments? Check out on 135, please. No problem.
135
Thank you.
is a donation, the police department received from the Mental Health Association, giving them $7,004.60 to pay for overtime for additional training on mental health issues. What this is gonna do is we're gonna get that money and we're gonna put it into police overtime to pay for that.
Okay. Questions or comments on that?
Great.
All right, Chuck, thanks. Jared, looks like we're on to you now.
Yeah, I'll do the, I don't think so. Nope, you're good. 19-130.
Yep.
Last week, by the way, does everyone know Matt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we met him at the
Okay.
city council.
Just wanted to share.
Yep.
I wouldn't have ignored it.
So, last week, the Attorney General announced what we had previously known is that the city was a recipient of a $250,000 grant as part of a Zombie 2.0 initiative. So this is an initiative from the Attorney General's office in collaboration with the city's ongoing zombie initiative. These are vacant properties that have not been foreclosed upon, maybe have been foreclosed upon. So this funding will help increase the capacity with our given system. We have the vacant property officer, we got the Westgate, but I think everyone has probably worked with at one point or another. We're also going to be making a part-time employee full-time to also be able to do site visits, work in collaboration with code enforcement and the vacant property officer. We also have, as part of the funding,
money for homes that are in need of rehab, that are either with the land bank or are coming off the county foreclosure process or a bank foreclosure process. This is something where we need to fix a front porch to make it code compliant, and it's a zombie property that's being foreclosed upon. We want to get that back on the market as quickly as possible. Broadly speaking, the definition of a zombie property, which in 2014 was originally, it's owned by a bank. The bank has kicked people out, but they will not foreclose upon it because of whatever reason. Now it includes bank-owned properties. There's a property in Councilman Scanlon's district where some woman is paying taxes, but does not live in the property and is basically just abandoned it. We're looking to get that donated. 41 Grant Street's another great example of it. Any type of property without a plan, that is blighted, that has some nebulous ownership or future, is being treated as a zombie property. We're getting some funding from the Attorney General's office to assist. The planning department and the mayor's office put together this grant application, and we were successful. So we were waiting for the Attorney General's office to announce it before bringing it.
Do you have a number, slight number, how many zombie properties we might have in the city?
Vacant properties, I think, are in the hundreds.
Zombie properties in particular?
I don't know that off the top of my head. Not all vacant properties are zombie.
Right. Plus, with that expanded definition, that makes it more difficult to quantify as well.
Yeah, so again, something that would just be bank-owned, for example, in the past, may have been a small number of properties. Councilman Mazzo, 4 Home Ave is a great example of a very tough property. These are the tough ones, essentially, so we're getting some more resources to help address those.
Yes, Councilman Stern.
Thank you, Jared. Please correct me if I'm wrong. This original grant, this was a 2-year grant, wasn't it?
I believe the original Zombie 1 was
Right.
a 2-year grant.
Right.
We've received a confirmation that they will look to have us spend down any additional money
Got
that's
it.
left before
Okay.
activating the 2.0.
2.0,
So
I got it.
we actually have some leftover funding that we use up when it comes to
Good.
staffing, and then the 2.0 will get us 2 years in addition after that.
That's great.
Any
Thank you.
questions or comments? Okay, Jared, on the, 19-138, please.
Oh, no, this is with
Columbus Park.
So, as the mayor discussed in the State of the City address, to bring some improvements to Columbus Park, we need a planning landscape architecture firm to assist us with this. This was an open RFQ that went out. There was a selection committee. I was not on that committee. They recommended Whittam Planning and Design to come up with some general layouts, what type of infrastructure could be used. There's kind of 2 parts of this. Number 1 is we would like to apply for CFA funding as part of this next round at the end of July. Whittam has verified that they'll be able to put together the necessary documents before we submit, but also broadly be a point of contact coordination as they do some layouts and work with parks to identify what some of the top features are that children want to play. I think the concept that everyone's kind of coalescing around is something more adventure themed, not your standard playground, but something that could be a destination for kids across the city to go to Columbus Park, something that's unique maybe to parks in the area. So we have to do some layouts, we have to do some research to determine what those are. And Councilman Taylor will get them in touch with you to offer input as this process goes along. Great.
Questions or comments? Councilman Livingston. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did you have something?
Go ahead.
How did these guys come in terms of price? I know that that's not the sole consideration really with an RFQ, but I'm just curious how they compare to the other.
Well, actually, price is not part of the RFQ. We look at qualified firms and determine who is best able to handle a certain project. And then once that firm is chosen, you negotiate with them based on, to get a scope of service. So this represents the negotiated price based on the most qualified firm.
All right, thanks.
Councilman Papster, add something?
Yeah, I wanna ask you, how big of an area are you talking for this, the addition to the park?
Think of it within the current footprint. Obviously not changing the spray pad, that's new. Not
It's on
make-
the side of the spray
make-
pad?
Yeah, there's a asphalt area, for lack of a better term, and then looking at, you know, what are the priorities as it relates to that area where the ball field is. We may wanna keep that, we may want to, alter it in some way. That's kind of the general area we're talking about. The basketball courts are new, everything else is new, so it'd be the ball fields and then that area near.
It's like a
the
little
trees.
parking area on the left as you're looking at the place, right?
It's
It'd be-
asphalt.
It is, there's asphalt
It's
in
not
there.
even like a
Parking
parking
lot.
spot.
It's not the parking.
No, it's on the south end of the
On
park.
the right side, so
Yeah.
you're looking at the park, it's on the right side of the spray park?
It's on the left side of the spray park, if you're looking
It's a little,
across Carroll Street.
it's a little
It's like
area.
behind
If
the
you're standing at
backstop.
the Urban League, you're looking
Exactly,
across to
yeah,
Columbus
yeah.
Park, it's in the left.
Yeah.
It's kind of
But not the parking.
no man's land,
It's
not
the-
the parking area.
Okay, we were just there, so I can picture it now with, there's a lot of things going on.
It's asphalt kind of right now,
Yeah.
so how can we incorporate the trees that are there? Yeah, that's a thing, venture, get something cutting edge.
Other questions or comments on that? Thank you, Jared. I think we're on the pending legislation now with,
Ken's gotta do 251 Main.
This is talking to code.
oh, sorry about that.
No, it has Jared and both our names on it.
Okay.
Code sent out an imminent danger letter on May 10th. A roof has collapsed on the garage structure, accessory structure behind this property. We gave them 30 days to repair, and they haven't done it. We're trying to get in touch with them, no luck, so we're gonna move forward with doing it ourselves, putting a lien on the property, and bringing action against the owner.
Where is 251 Main Street? What property are we talking about here?
I was just pulling it up.
Is it a house or is it a business?
Oh, what's in the principal use?
Yeah.
Isn't it right near, it's right near like the CVS, isn't it? Like near Helen?
I have to bring it up, right?
Yeah.
I did not have a picture
Yeah.
of the file.
I think it's right near the CVS.
Yeah, so it's, not
There's a church there.
Leave inside on the left, to look to Kansas City or the right, you know?
I'll get it on Google Maps, but. You wanna go to whatever's next, and I'll bring it back.
I mean, that's the end of it, I think, right?
Yeah, that's the last one.
Yeah, that's the last one.
Well, you have pending legislation.
Is it behind the house?
So 251 Main in downtown Jackson City, and that's the.
It's right next to CVS, is right.
That's my current.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
right next to CVS.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the numbers, because that's close to where the districts meet.
Across from Smoker's Choice.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just on the, so it's just,
It's like that.
west of CVS. So it's a building west of CVS.
I can go upstairs and send an email to council with the.
That's fine, I'm just curious of what it was.
The GIS, I think.
Questions or comments on 251 Main Street? Thank you. Lee, pending legislation, please.
So we have 4 items. We have the Spartan pump vehicle for the fire department. In the capital fund, we're closing grants that are no longer active. And then we have the Moeller Street pump station and the 6th Ward sanitary sewer separate project, which I think is the 4th Street project.
Questions or comments on that?
Then you got 5 expedited.
Just have, so quick. it's not-
Five.
Sure, yeah.
The homeless one, they asked.
Oh, yeah.
Or the family enrichment.
The family enrichment was asked.
Oh, yeah, the 5.
Councilman Livingston?
Business and family enrichment will probably be back in 2 weeks with They have a pilot, it's not an IDA pilot, it's a pilot based on, they are a not-for-profit, they're agreeing to pay some taxes. We're just finishing that agreement, I know they're anxious to get that done.
Good. For the Liberty Street property?
For that group of properties.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Hold on. Council Livingston has something.
I'm just curious if we could get a list of the members of the selection committee for the RFP for private operations management,
It's the mayor of Johnson City.
right? I got
Mayor of
it.
Binghamton.
Clark
Got
Gidlin,
it. Yep, Gitlin was okay.
trustee,
Yep.
Councilman Packastrat.
Oh, that's right.
The two employees of the city engineer,
Jessica.
Standish, the DPW commissioner of the village, Bob Bennett.
And then you and.
Ron Lake is the mayor's appointee,
Right.
and their joint appointee is Bevan Baudet, who is the engineer who helped prepare the RFP and review the plan.
And are there any civil service tested wastewater operators on the committee? I don't really know everyone's qualifications, but I was just curious.
I don't know Bob Bennett is a PD. I know that Bevan Baudet ran a section of Florida wastewater treatment plants for years. So yes, there are people on it that understand what water treatment plant operates.
Thanks. That was all I.
Okay,
Motion to
take a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.